Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, it's an interesting situation they've set up where basically Veronica and Archie are kind of going through some stuff at the same time that they're not 100% communicating to each other, because I think, well, basically they kind of get wrapped up in the thing of like, all right, let's just kind of enjoy the time, because obviously last episode Veronica started thinking like, well, obviously it's going to turn into a whole like long distance relationship between her and Archie, because obviously she's going to a school in New York, but she knows that Archie would never leave Riverdale, because she's like, Riverdale will literally fall apart without him. That's how she feels. So plus on top of that, she's dealing with the whole situation of her dad. Like, her dad is sick, and the fact is he doesn't know that she knows, and she's like, oh, let me help you, and he's like, no, I got it. And she's just kind of frustrated because it's like she wants to do something for him, but she knows it's something she can't really do anything about. So him not accepting her help, him being so prideful, it irritated her. So she's just kind of like, she feels like she needs something. Like, obviously she's trying to distract herself. Her spending time with Archie is kind of a distraction, but at the same time it's because so much is kind of spiraling at once that it's kind of making her, feel like that. And obviously she's drinking and she wants to party it up, but Archie's like, come on, like, we kind of take things slow. Like, I get it, you want to spend a lot of time together, but obviously she's just partying more and more. But then obviously, like, she starts even drinking at school and she gets busted for it. But Archie takes the fall for her, because for him it's like, I've literally got nothing to lose, because what he found out, because basically he can't even, like, because of his grade situation, which I think you could legitimately cut him some slack. I mean, it's like Honey's just being kind of an asshole. Like, I get it, but the fact is Archie's had a really rough while. I mean, it's like, because he's going back, the past 2 years. It's like, oh, you mean when he was locked up in juvie for something he didn't do? And then also the whole situation of, oh yeah, his dad recently died. Yeah. Like, it's just kind of like Honey's in his own space of how he wants Riverdale High to kind of be run. And so for him, it's just kind of like, it's like, it's a hollow, if I let you go for, a student who doesn't deserve it, a student I highly would believe deserves it, because let's not forget, he was literally part of the group that solved Jason Blossom's murder. He was one of the four main people dealing with the whole situation of the Gargoyle King. It's like, I feel like all that kind of gives him a little more leeway, in all of this, but regardless of all of that, And it's just kind of like, oh, we both can admit, Mr. Andrews, that'd be a hollow thing if someone who doesn't really deserve it ends up kind of walking with his class. He's like, yeah, sure, oh, yeah, and kind of nods along, like, reluctantly. So there's that, plus Archie's caught between this whole situation of, he can't really find the time and, like, to run both the center, as, center slash gym, as well as, his father's company. So it's this complicated thing that he's in, so he's got a lot to deal with too. And I think obviously his way of dealing with it isn't going down the route that, both of them are trying to deal with their respective situations in their own way, and Veronica handled things her way. But it was just this moment of Archie taking the fall for her, going back to it. And there was even this moment where you had like Cheryl go kind of gasp, and I was like, it was almost like, oh, I guess, because I was like, oh, she knew what was up, and she was probably like, oh, that's super sweet that Archie's taking a fall for Veronica in this case. Yeah, that's what I interpreted that from, but it was just kind of like, I don't know. But obviously, like, because Veronica isn't expressing what's going on, Archie's just kind of like, yo, what's up with you? And she just, it's that thing of like, she kind of pushes him away, because it's just like, because no one else knows. There's only people within her family, which that turns into a whole, because she already has her sister Hermosa doing the whole duplicitous thing of like, oh yeah, trying to make deals and stuff like that. It's like, oh, here's someone who wants to try and make a deal with them and stuff like that. Tony shows up, and it's like, you can obviously, I was like, oh, it's Hermosa in a wig, okay. But then it's like, I was like, come on, Veronica's got to know at some point. It's like, are they really going to? But I was like, at some point Veronica's going, but it's like, oh no, and Tony lays it out. It's like, oh, we basically honey trapped you, because like the fact is we knew from the beginning who you were. Like, Tony was like, I knew the moment I saw you. And it's like, okay, so whose idea was this? Was his dad's? Which begs the question, what? She never really gave it an answer, whether that was just Hermosa doing it on her own, or whether that was just their dad. It could just easily be her dad just her dad hasn't really been himself, so I think Hermosa was doing that just to try and make their dad feel better, because it turns out, because she knew she knows about what their dad's going through. She just didn't know that Veronica knew, because she's like, oh, Dad told me, which obviously hits Veronica. Once again, like, that relationship is just kind of a black hole. Because in fact, her and her dad's relationship, because like, she got the advice to kind of break free of that relationship. She tried to, finding out he's sick, she kind of circles back to it, which once again, it's like, oh, because of stuff that went down in this episode, maybe go like, yeah, he actually is sick, isn't he? But it's just kind of like it's too perfectly timed. But that's why I'm kind of like, well, it makes you wonder, is there something else duplicitous going on there? Is he actually not really sick? Maybe we'll go down. I'm a conspiracy corner. I shouldn't say that because that's actually someone else's stuff. But conspiracy theories, we'll kind of leave it at that. Maybe Hermosa showed up and is poisoning him because she's pissed, because she likes to make it seem like, oh, he took care of me and everything, but it's still the thing of like, yeah, he looked after you and all that, but he still spent time with, like, because I think she wants to make Veronica jealous, because legitimately, like, no matter how much he wants to pretend, like dude, like, oh, Hermosa is so important to me. It's like, no, Veronica's always going to be the apple of your eye. You push her so hard because she's a reflection of you, so he wants Hermosa to be around, to be competition, to kind of push her in his own, that's what I'm thinking, in his own, like, it's a complicated relationship they have. So I'm, in my thought process, I'm thinking like, okay, so maybe Hermosa is saying like, oh, like, Dad's always cared for me and taken care of me, but now she's resentful because it's like, you've literally spent your entire life with Veronica, not just taking care of her, but she's like the apple of your eye. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe it's all been a long con. So maybe he's only got this disease and everything, because maybe she's secretly been poisoning him this entire time. Like I said, just randomly throwing it out there. We'll see in the future whether or not there ends up being any validity to that or not. But for, like I said, getting back to it, Veronica, the sad thing is she cares so much about what her dad thinks. And for him to tell, wait, I'm supposed to be kind of like, she might be like, oh, I don't care if I'm the apple of your eye or not. It's like, you really do, because you're like, wait, he told you and not me? If it was one thing if he told both of you, that's fine. But he told you over telling me. And Hermosa was like, well, what do you expect? Like, he knew how you react. Like, could you blame him for not telling him? It's like, and she's so smug about it too. Like, she's fixing her hair as Veronica's walking away. She's got like a smug look on her face. Like I said, it's just, I feel like it's all part of the plan. Because like I said, because she ends up talking about it later on that her dad hasn't really been himself the past couple of days. So that's why I'm thinking, like, either, yes, Hiram set that whole thing up to kind of push himself, to kind of push Veronica. But also at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but the fact is, Veronica was saying that makes me think like that was 100% Hermosa doing that by herself. Because like, he hasn't really been the most, like, I mean, hell, he shows up at his dinner, which even that's interesting. Because even Archie's kind of letting a lot of stuff slide. I mean, to be fair, he knows that, Hiram put forth the money for his dad's like funeral and stuff like that. So it's like, they buried the hatchet a little bit, but it's just kind of like he lets him into the gym and everything, helps him out, even asking him advice about the business and stuff like that, which we'll get to in a second. But so obviously Veronica's been taking that whole situation hard, like, and she ends up finally explaining that to Archie, and Archie's like, you're the strongest person, I know you can handle this. Because for him, it's like, I know it's a sucky situation, but you have something I didn't have with my dad. If I, like, because what happened to Fred, like, it came out of nowhere. He's like, if I knew that, I would have spent so much more time with him, but I never even got to say goodbye. There's no telling how long you have with your dad. It's a limited amount of time, but make the most of it. Spend as much time with him. You know what drives your dad, so you want to help him out, like, push him. And she does that. She gets very competitive and pushes him. And then like, oh, look at this. My rum is going to do so much better than yours. Oh, we're going to bring up production like 300%. He's like, all right, you awaken the dragon. He's going to eat you. And Hermosa and Hermione try to like chastise her, be like, oh, wait, you see the things that your dad's going through and you're going to ignite that fire in him like that. And she's like, yes, because I know what's going to push Dad over the edge. Look at him, how hyped up he is. He's ready for battle. He hasn't been like that the past couple days. I did that because I know him better than anyone else. So sit back, ladies, and see how it's done. So I think that, like I said, it's a forever extremely complicated relationship Veronica has with her dad, so it's just interesting. But kind of circling back to the Archie situation, because he's kind of torn between the two of like, he doesn't have enough time for everything. Hiram had suggested like, you're going to have to potentially sell one of them, but obviously he doesn't want to, because obviously the center is very important to him and it has his dad's name, but also the company has been in his family, and so he has to kind of decide. So he sits down with Keller to talk about the fact is like, okay, so my thought process has been like, he's like, I'm going to sell the business because there's a dude named Vic who's been kind of wanting the business for a while. The fact of the matter is he was good for, my dad liked him and everything. I could use that money to pay Keller. I could pay you to kind of help me run the gym and stuff like that. Because it turns out he's got Monroe's, I want to say Monroe's grandma, like watching over the place during the day. And for her, it's like, you basically helped my boy get a scholarship to Notre Dame. So obviously I'm happy to help out. And, and initially, that's what Archie was going to do, but when the time came, he couldn't because it's like this business belonged to his grandfather and it passed down to his dad. It's like, I can't let this business fall into anyone else's hands, especially when it has Andrew's name on it. Like, I have to keep it in the family, and he apologizes. And the fact is, Keller's willing to kind of stay on for a lower price, salary until they get more people staffed back on it. And he's going to continue running the center himself, so... And luckily, he took Hiram's advice, So, like I said, there's that. Like I said, that's an interesting, complicated relationship in its own right. So, that's a whole thing in itself that I think I was like, okay, so that's definitely going to be interesting to see where all that kind of ends up taking us, going forward. But there's that side of things. Then on the other side of things, there's the whole Betty and Jughead situation. Because Jughead, which I was under the impression Jughead was kind of walking away from everything, the Baxter books. The fact is, walking away from the school, like the moment he turned down, like he gave Brett the win, I thought that was kind of it, but I guess it's like, because, DuPont's coming at him like this and this and this and this, and like basically you got to, like, if you want to do anything, because you're getting kicked out of school because of Betty breaking into the Quill and Pen, the Quill and Skull place, and then the fact of the matter is, just everything that's happened so far. It's like, oh, you're getting kicked out. He's like, if I write a good enough book until Friday, because Friday's the deadline, he's like, it literally took you months to write the story that got booted. So there's no way this one's going to be okay. But obviously Jughead starts writing it. We see it day by day. And he's like, oh, admit it. You guys are on the edge of your seats, aren't you? Because he ends up getting inspiration from Betty about what he should write about, and basically writing about everything that basically he's experienced here at Stonewall Prep, including like Moose, starting with Moose's story. And so he's kind of, basically taking what the initial book was supposed to be, was basically about Jason's murder. Then eventually the next story being like about the Black Hood situation, so on and so forth. So obviously pulling from your own personal experiences, makes it a little easier to write about, but I guess at the same time it could be a hard thing as well. But now it turns into this whole situation of like, also Jonathan is claiming that the story that Jughead used to get into the school he wrote, and it's like, what? No, it's on my old laptop. Oh yeah, the old laptop. Brett went out of his way to make sure that you got a new laptop. It's like, dude, it's like they've been systematically planning this since the beginning. Like they've had it out for you since the very beginning. But the argument could be you prove resistant, not willing to conform to their way. To be fair, they always looked at Jughead as the other. They might placate and try to pretend like, oh, like everything was fair and fine at the beginning. They were kind of old dicks. It's not just Brett. It's not just Donna. Literally everyone. It seems that particular group, those 4 students and DuPont. Granted, obviously he caught shit from the other students last episode because he challenged Brett and everything, but we don't see his interaction with literally anyone else in Stonewall Prep except for this group of 5. So it's like, they're kind of a representation of all that, but it seems like them in particular have a stick up their ass about Jughead, and it's like, it does seem like it's just kind of like, oh, where he came from, because they are very 1%ers and stuff like that. And obviously, like FP's got a fire underneath him too, being like, no, we're not going to let them besmirch your name because it's also my name, and it's like, we're not going to let them tarnish the Forsyth legacy. The Jones legacy, sorry. It still fits in that same regard. But Betty and Jughead pull out a lie detector, and Donna's like, I'm not going to take it. And it's like, Jughead, here. He answers truthfully, and Donna's like, oh, that's not going to do anything. And once again, Betty being like, yeah, we already know that, bitch. I'm like, dude, I don't know what it is. It's just like sassy-ass Betty saying bitch. Like, I swear, she's the only person I've ever heard say the word bitch in this show. It's almost like they're like, let's give Betty an excuse to say bitch. I don't know what it is. Because I like the way when you say the word bitch with some sassiness. I don't know why. I talked about it recently in the this week's episode of Dare Me. Like, I love it. obviously, if you heard my review, you know what I'm talking about. I won't go into it, but it's like, because I feel like I pointed out every time, because it stands out. I'm like, yo, because I think it's because obviously Betty has a very like nice girl next door, the girl next door type of vibe. That's kind of her whole kind of shtick, which is weird to say. But the fact is, obviously, we know as the sort of series has progressed, Betty's definitely got a darker side, and it's just like, especially because it's like she doesn't like them. She really hates them because it's like, oh, like the fact of the matter is, when we're done, none of you 1%ers, none of you will be standing. I'm like, oh, that sounds so badass, Betty saying that. But obviously, it's not that easy because they confront Donna about everything, and Donna's just kind of like, oh, you think you've got it all figured out? Because they're thinking like, oh, DuPont's like at the top of all this. It's like, I feel like it's not like one person above all. I think it's legitimately just all, like either the kids are legitimately a part of this and DuPont's just kind of playing his role, or the fact is all 5 of them are just as equally a part of this. Because that's the thing of like, you constantly, because Betty and Jughead feel like they've got the upper hand, but every time they turn around, the others, like the Stonewall Preppers, have like the upper hand, because like Donna's just like so in control. She's like, oh, you think you got it figured out? Ha ha ha. Brett's talking about like the fact is, oh, you need to stop wasting your time writing that story, and Jughead's just kind of confronting him, but Brett's like, oh, the fact of the matter is, like, if you try to bring up any dirt on me and just Stonewall Prep in general, I'll release that sex tape of you and Betty. Once again, there'll be legal situations with that, because like I said, I get the feeling that would technically classify as revenge porn, but also I think it would also technically depend on how old they were. Like, I guess like Betty and Jughead are like 18, so it wouldn't be it probably wouldn't go down the very illegal route of like, so, but obviously it's also the thing of like, if you go about it like, Brett, he's an asshole, so he's going to go about it a very secret enough way where he can hide that it originated from him, so as long as that, he would never suffer any legal ramifications anyway. But because of that, Jughead backs down. He doesn't put up a fight, because it's like, if it was about him, sure, I'll take the hits. But the fact is, he doesn't want to put Betty in that situation, because for one, it's like, because sadly, truth be told is, it would follow Betty more than it would Jughead. It would follow Jughead, but just because Betty's a lady, and just, especially because she's trying to get to a good college and everything, it would literally like ruin so much of her life. It would legitimately follow her. I mean, that's me personally. I just feel like that ends up being the case, that a sex tape just societal wise, like I feel like it sadly impacts a lady more than it would do. I mean, maybe statistically, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's stuff to be like, oh no, it affects dudes just as much, but it just seems like it affects ladies more. Like I said, it could be wrong. That's just my opinion, just from what I would observe from real life situations of it, seeming like, yeah, that kind of has regardless. So I just thought that, it's interesting. And obviously, FP's getting pissed at Jughead because he's like, you didn't even fight. It's like, yeah, but the cards were literally stacked against me. Once again, it seems like they've literally had it out for Jughead since the beginning. It's like they marked him as like, oh, he's going to be our mark. We're gonna mess with him. But like I said, is it just because he wouldn't conform that they were going like, oh, we're messing with you a little bit, but then you actually bared your teeth at it? It's like, how dare you, someone lower than us, act like you're the shit. It's like, oh, we're going to put you in your place. And I think it just kind of snowballed from there potentially. And even Betty's like, so that's what it was about. It doesn't matter, like, that you don't have to do that. But obviously Jughead, and obviously Donna and them show up to be like, oh, her and Brett show up to be like, oh, you should come to this Ides March thing, party in the woods and everything. It's like, all right. Jughead's like, all right, we should go. And there was that, he was like, I got something planned. Do you trust me? And then immediately I'm like, wait. I'm like, is this suggesting that everything that's going down, like his quote unquote murder and everything that went down, is this supposed to be Jughead's plan? Is what I was kind of assuming. Is that what that's supposed to be? I'm like, all right, well, we'll wait and see. I was like, okay, so is he the one but he doesn't tell Betty anything. So when the time comes and everything's kind of playing out, obviously Betty shows up for the party. Obviously Archie shows up with Veronica. Obviously Archie talked about his plans about like how he's going to handle the whole school situation going forward, of like, going to summer school, and then like, I think what was basically using it as an opportunity to like apply for colleges again. So that's the kind of things being worked out. And it's like, oh, Betty and Jughead invited us to that Stonewall Prep party. And he's like, really? Oh, no. They suck. And it's like, yeah, they super do. But you know, Stonewall prep suck, and yeah, they really, really do. But the fact of the matter is, Archie and Veronica go. Jughead shows up in his serpent's jacket, and he wears the rabbit's mask, which just makes me immediately think of the movie You're Next. It just kind of pops in my head. I don't know if that's aesthetically what they're going with, especially like the animal mask and stuff like that. But regardless. But Brett's kind of like, the fact that Jughead stands there with the mask on, not saying anything, but then when he goes into the wood, he takes the mask off and puts his hat on. I'm like, what's that about? What was the point of putting on a mask then? Like, what do you, I mean, he brought his blade with him too, so I'm like, okay, this isn't, okay, Betty follows Donna, and it's like, oh, we're going to expose you and everything. She's like, oh yeah, I did some research on you. I went to visit Evelyn. Yeah, what about it? Oh, Tangerine doesn't work on me. It's like, oh no, the other word, the trigger that puts you in a fugue state, which obviously that's happened before because obviously they were able to get her as well as other people into fugue states. That's how they were, the farm was able to kind of convince people. It's like obviously making Betty think it was, her she was seeing when in actuality it was Paulie dressed up, that whole thing. But like Jughead had followed Brett. Obviously Jonathan and the other girl had been like, yeah, I think they went this way, and Veronica and Archie start walking, then Brett and Donna show up. I'm like, oh, this can't be good. And lo and behold, we catch up where things are, and it's like, oh, Betty's standing with a rock in her head, Jughead's dead on the ground, Archie tries to feel his pulse, and it's like, what did you do? So immediately my brain starts to go, because like I said, the entire time I've been trying to figure out, I was like, this can't be what we think it is. So it's either got to be a situation of Jughead being like, all right, he must have been able to snap Betty out of it last second, being like, okay, this is what's going to go down. They think you're in a fugue state. Do this. I'm going to pretend to be dead. Maybe he took something to make it seem like he died. Like, I think this is a long con. This is a whole game that maybe even Jughead's dad's a part. That's what I was kind of thinking and stuff like that. Like, make them think like, oh, they've got the upper hand when in actuality it's all a game that they're playing out. That's what I'm assuming, because like I said, I don't believe this to be what they think it is. Like, yeah, like she probably Donna was able to put her in a fugue state, but maybe Jughead, like she was trying to attack Jughead, but Jughead was able to kind of snap her out of it. She's like, wait, what? And it's like, it's okay. Or he kind of went along with it, kind of, because he was like, remember what he said? He's like, do you trust me? She's like, yeah. So he probably let her think she killed him, and he's playing dead. And so I don't think maybe Archie and Veronica might not be a part of this, as well as Betty. I don't know. That's why I'm kind of getting the feeling like maybe they are, and they're just playing along with it. We don't know. That's what I think they're kind of setting this up to be like. Like I said, because they made a point to Jughead be like, do you trust me? And like, he's got a plan for this now. How this is all going to play out, I have no idea, but I'm very interested to find out. Do note there won't be an episode of Riverdale next week, but there will be one the following week on February 26th, so do keep that in mind. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.